Hello, students, and welcome back to our next topic in science class. This week, it can be an exciting and a depressing topic all at once, because this week's topic is about something that can truly affect human lives around planet Earth. This week's topic is natural disasters. I hope none of you have truly experienced a natural disaster, but this week we're going to find out, well, how do we define natural disasters and what are different kinds of natural disasters? So as we go through this topic this week, I am going to be linking you outside our lesson videos. I'm going to be linking you to a number of video clips which are going to show you real natural disasters. I will do my best to censor and edit out any real graphic scenes, but natural disasters that are recorded by someone somewhere on planet Earth. And so, I'll leave that kind of discussion for when we get to the videos themselves. But let's begin in our notes. Let's begin in our notes with what natural disasters are in the first place. A natural disaster is a force of nature, a force of nature. Now, forces can be defined as a push or a pull on an object. We're talking about tremendous forces of nature, more powerful than any humans, that's for sure. And this force of nature having a significant negative impact on human activity. And so we're not talking about a beautiful rainbow, which is, formed by forces of nature, not something beautiful like that, but we're talking about some of the things illustrated in some of these pictures here. You can see earthquakes, volcanoes, hurricanes, tornadoes. These are some of the examples of natural disasters that we are going to unpack and explore this week. You've already had a brief introduction yesterday with our video introducing the idea of natural disasters. Now we're going to get into the nitty-gritty details of them. So as we begin today, we're going to start with a list of disasters based upon their sources, the sources of that incredible natural energy, those forces. Depending upon what causes those forces is how we are going to categorize them or group them here today. So the first source that we will mention, we're referring to as tectonic sources. Tectonic, you may recall from our first unit of study, involves the forces of the crust of the Earth. Remember plate tectonics, the movement of the various plates around planet Earth. These are internal forces. Tectonic forces illustrated by this, what became a very famous photograph of Los Angeles during a very famous earthquake in the late 20th century. These forces are internal to the Earth, meaning these are forces below the surface. Okay? That brings us to the second source of disasters called lithospheric sources. Lithospheric refers to the lithosphere, which describes the surface of the Earth itself. So lithospheric sources are those that happen on the surface of the Earth. And here, this is a picture of a tremendous flash flood. A flash flood happens on the surface of the Earth, and it can wreak havoc along the way. So the second source of disasters is lithospheric. The third one are classified as the atmospheric sources of disasters. And the atmosphere, as you know, is where the hydrologic cycle takes place. Precipitation falls out of the atmosphere. We've learned previously about wind in the atmosphere and how wind is formed. We've talked about the weather and the climate of planet Earth. All of these things take place in the atmosphere, and they take place all the time. But we're not talking about just day to day weather when we talk about disasters that have a source in the atmosphere. We're talking about severe events, severe events like this picture of a tornado. You do not want to be in this car if there's a tornado like this headed your way, or you won't be in that car for very long. And that car won't be there for very long either. So, source number 3 is atmospheric. That brings us to a very interesting one, I think: extraterrestrial sources. Extraterrestrial sources are beyond planet Earth. Extra means beyond, terrestrial means Earth. Here's a picture in the southwestern United States of Meteor Crater. This crater was formed by the impact of a meteoroid that was about the size of a refrigerator. This is about 1 mile in diameter. If you were walking around here that day that it hit hundreds of thousands of years ago, that would have been a bad day for you because a meteoroid smashing into the surface of the Earth can create, well, quite a disaster, to say the least. And we'll be talking about other sources of extraterrestrial disasters as well. And finally, number 5. Number 5 are called anthropogenic. Now, that is a big word. Take your time copying it down. Anthro refers to human beings. Anthropology is the study of human cultures. So, anthropogenic is a big word that describes human activity. And there are disasters that happen all around the planet that are caused by human beings. In fact, right now, while this video is being made, there's a war raging in Ukraine, and there are people literally trying to evacuate that country by any means possible, including trains and buses and cars, etc. So the 5th source of disasters are the anthropogenic, or the human activity based. All right, now we're going to take each one of those and we're going to unpack them in a little bit more detail. And I think today we'll have time to discuss in more detail this first category of disasters caused by internal processes. And as I mentioned, we're going to link you to various videos so that you can see some of these things taking place on the screen. There are three tectonic forces that we'll explore with our little video clips. First one is a category called the volcanoes. Volcanoes are a tectonic force, as you remember from our study of plate tectonics in the first unit. Volcanoes are caused by various things, including hot spots, like in the Pacific plate with the Hawaiian Islands going over a hot spot and volcanic activity exists, or it can be the result of different plates with plate tectonics, either converging or diverging. We've got the diverging plates in the mid-Atlantic ridge that causes volcanic activity, such as found in Iceland. And we've also got submerging plates, as we have in the island nation of Japan, both of which cause volcanic activity. But regardless of what type of plate tectonic forces are involved, volcanoes, if they happen when you are visiting the island or trying to hike a mountain, well, this is a bad day for you, because this would be a terrible source of disasters situations. A volcano produces either ash or lava. There are different types of eruptions that can occur. Back in the early 1980s, Mount St. Helens erupted and blew off the whole top half of the mountain and resulted in ash flows for miles around. In fact, some of the ash went thousands of miles in the atmosphere. Other volcanoes, like the one on the Hawaiian Islands or in Iceland, have lava eruptions. And this lava we learned about in the first unit, hot molten rock, melted rock material flowing in rivers down to the sea to create new land. But either one, you don't want to be in its path, folks, because this ash, this pyroclastic debris, or the lava, the molten material, they're both hot and they're both deadly. There's one famous example in history of Mount Vesuvius. Mount Vesuvius was a mountain in Italy that erupted many, many years ago, and there was a town called Pompeii that was buried in ash almost instantaneously. So fast was the ash depositing on this town that people were literally frozen in time. Well, that's not really completely accurate. They were vaporized in time. What do I mean by that? Well, their bodies were covered in hot ash. Their bodies literally melted and vaporized away, leaving a cavity in the space that their body at once occupied. Today, we've explored places like this, and you can actually pour plaster of Paris into these empty holes, dig around the ash, and excavate the remains, the mold, if you will, the cast and the mold of human bodies. And so well preserved are these shapes that you can actually see the expressions on their face and their fingers holding on to either toys or family members. Devastating destruction that took place on that day many years ago in Pompeii. But this is only one of the tectonic forces, volcanoes. The next one is earthquakes. Earthquakes can cause the entire destruction of a town or region's infrastructure. And when we say infrastructure, we're referring to roads, plumbing, electricity, etc., things that keep a town or a region running. That's its infrastructure. If you were in this car on this day, that would be a bad day. Obviously, it was driving on a road when an earthquake hit. And, well, this truck here isn't getting out anytime soon because it can't back up. It can't go forward. It can't go to the side. It's like stuck on a little island of asphalt in an area where an earthquake struck. You also know that earthquakes are caused by the plate tectonic activity that we learned about during our geology unit at the beginning of the year. And that brings us to the third of the tectonic forces, tsunamis. Tsunamis. I have some videos to show you of more recent tsunamis which have taken place around our planet. These generally affect only coastal regions or low-lying regions, but they're caused by underwater earthquakes. And as you know from plate tectonics, earthquakes occur all the time, periodically around planet Earth. And so when these do happen, tsunami warnings go up. And if you are in the path of a tsunami, as we will see in some of our videos today, well, devastating things can happen. Look at the scale here of this massive tsunami wave just overtaking cars and boats as it crashes on shore and continues to move with a force that cannot be stopped with by humans. These forces of natural disasters that we're exploring this week are much more powerful than anything humans can put together. In fact, some of these natural disasters are more powerful, they have more force associated with them than the most powerful nuclear weapons that humans have constructed. And so we're talking a lot of energy here. But I want to leave time for us to watch some of the video clips. So I'm going to end this video for today. We've focused on the different kinds of disasters in general terms, and we have focused on the internal sources. Tomorrow, we'll focus on disasters caused by surface processes. So for now, I'm going to say bye-bye.